Tomorrow morning, you walk out your back door and you are standing on $4 million of real estate. $2 million of machinery is parked in the shed behind you. Your checking account is $1,200 in the negative, so ordering pizza for your family tonight is not happening. You have a 14-hour day ahead of you. Diesel fumes, fertilizer dust in your throat, a hydraulic leak that puts grease up to your elbows, and $600,000 of high-interest bank debt riding on all of it. If the rain comes at the wrong time, you lose the year. If it never comes, you lose the year. And if the weather behaves and you bring in a record harvest, global prices drop because everybody else brought one in too, and you can still finish in the red. That is what farming actually feels like right now. It is one of the most capital-heavy gambles anyone can take, run on 80-hour weeks and million-dollar machinery notes in a business where you carry all of the risk and keep less than 6 cents of every food dollar spent at the store. So if you have ever thought about walking away from your job to buy land, here's what the work, the routine, and the math really look like. You do not wake up to an alarm. You wake up before sunrise because animals and crops have never cared what time it is. Your calendar is not Monday through Friday either. It is 4 seasons, and any one of them can end your business. Spring is a race against a window. You get roughly 2 to 3 weeks to plant hundreds or thousands of acres. Go in when the ground is too wet and your tractor tires pack the soil like concrete and drown the seed. Wait too long and the season runs out before the first autumn frost. So you sit in a cab for 16 to 18 hours a day, watching satellite screens, humming with engine vibration, eating a cold sandwich at 2 in the morning while the guidance system steers the planter through pitch dark. Look at what you had to do just to turn the key on day 1. Before a single seed went into the ground, you sat across a desk from an agricultural lender in town and opened an operating line of credit. For 1,000 acres of corn and soybeans, the cash burn runs about like this. Seed costs you $100 to $120 an acre. Nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium fertilizer, another $150 to $200. Fuel, crop insurance, and herbicide, another $100 on top. Add it up and you have spent $400,000 of the bank's money before you harvest a single stalk. That money collects interest every day from March to December. Every gallon of diesel, every bag of seed you lift into the hopper, every part you replace, all of it is on credit. 8 straight months with nothing coming in. People drive past a farm, see the big green and red machines, and think that guy must be loaded. What they are actually looking at is a pile of debt that loses value every year. A high horsepower tractor runs $400,000 to $500,000. A precision planter, $150,000 to $250,000. A self-propelled sprayer, around $400,000. A modern combine, $600,000 to $900,000. Put grain trailers and a semi-truck next to that, and the iron in your yard is worth more than $2 million. If you are starting out without inherited ground and inherited equipment, buying that with cash is not a conversation. You sign 5 to 7 year equipment notes or lease structures that want $50,000 to $80,000 a year per machine. And that $1 million combine you are paying for every month works about 25 to 30 days a year. The rest of the time it sits in a steel shed, earning nothing while insurance, depreciation, and interest quietly eat your equity. Then something breaks, which on a farm happens every day, and that is when you find out how much of your machine you actually own. 40 years ago, a grinding noise in the transmission meant you pulled the cover, welded the gear, and got back to work. Your tractor now is a computer on wheels, run by encrypted control units. When an emission sensor or an electronic hydraulic valve quits at 4 in the afternoon with 20 acres left and a thunderstorm coming, no wrench in your shop is going to help. The tractor drops into limp mode. You call the dealership, you wait hours or sometimes days for a mobile technician, and you pay $150 an hour for someone to plug in a laptop you are not allowed to own and clear a fault code. The repair bill is not what hurts. The lost hours are, because acres that do not get planted before the rain turn into tens of thousands of dollars of yield you will never see. Say you survive spring. You carry the crop through 90-degree heat, you walk the rows looking for armyworms and leaf blight, and in October you get to harvest. 200 bushels of corn an acre. The bins are full. This is the good year. You pull the semi onto the scale at the river terminal. In almost any other business, you add up labor, materials, and overhead, and then you set your price. Software, bakeries, furniture shops, all of them do this. You do not set anything. You look up at the board on the elevator wall and read what the Chicago Board of Trade decided corn is worth this morning. Supply is heavy this year, exports are soft, so corn is $4 a bushel. Your cost of production, after land rent, seed, fertilizer, fuel, and equipment debt was $4.40. You hand over the crop and take a 40-cent loss on every bushel you grew with your own labor and borrowed money. You buy everything you need at retail, you sell what you make at wholesale, and you pay the freight in both directions. Animals are a different kind of hard. Dairy cows get milked 2 or 3 times a day, 365 days a year, at 4 in the morning and 4 in the afternoon. Christmas morning, your daughter's birthday, a blizzard at 20 below, you are still in the parlor. Poultry works through contracts. You borrow $500,000 to $1 million and build steel barns to a meat packer's exact blueprint. The company owns the chicks and the feed. You supply the land, the labor, the electricity, the maintenance, and you absorb every bird that dies. The way they pay you is called the tournament system. The company pools you with 15 or 20 other growers in your county and ranks everyone by feed conversion, meaning how much weight your birds gained on how much feed. Finish near the top and you get a bonus. That bonus comes out of the checks of the growers at the bottom of the same pool. You do not choose the health of the chicks that show up on your farm. You do not write the feed formula. But your ability to make the bank payment depends on beating your neighbors in a statistic that other people control. Push for better terms, and the company can simply skip your next flock, which leaves you with several $100,000 of debt on buildings that are good for exactly one thing. Now look at the family budget, because this is where the picture most people carry in their head falls apart. More than 80% of family farms in the United States depend on income earned somewhere other than the farm. While one person is out running the sprayer and the grain bins, the other one, or sometimes the same person, works a full 40-hour week in town as a teacher, a nurse, an accountant, or a truck driver. Part of that is the steady paycheck. The bigger part is health insurance. Buying private coverage for a family of 4 while working in one of the most dangerous jobs in the country can run $18,000 to $24,000 a year in premiums alone. The job in town keeps the farm alive in the bad years. The physical side of it almost never gets talked about. Farming sits in the top 5 most hazardous occupations in the world. You work around high-pressure hydraulics, spinning power takeoff shafts that can pull an arm in under a second, toxic gas inside grain bins, and animals that weigh 6 tons and can put you against a gate without meaning anything by it. Then you shut the tractor off at 10 at night and walk into the kitchen, and the job is still there, right outside the window. The note on your desk is tied to the same ground your kids play on. When a hailstorm comes through in August and shreds 600 acres of standing corn in 20 minutes, you watch it happen from your porch. That is why stress and isolation run so high out here. When a farm goes under, nobody loses a job. They lose the house, the ground, and 4 generations of work. So why does food feel more expensive than ever while the person who grew it is barely breaking even? Follow the money. Buy a $4 box of cereal or a $5 loaf of bread, and the farmer who grew the grain gets somewhere around 10 to 15 cents. The seed and chemical companies took their money in March. The elevator took a handling fee. The mill and the food company took manufacturing margin. Then the packaging plant, the trucking fleet, and the wholesaler each took a piece, and the grocery chain took shelf fees and retail margin on top. The farmer carries 100% of the weather risk and the production risk and keeps under 6 cents of the consumer food dollar. What you are paying for at the register is cardboard, refrigeration, freight, advertising, and retail floor space. Which raises the obvious question. How does a 25-year-old get into this at all? To build a row crop operation big enough to support a household, you need 500 to 800 acres. Good ground across the Midwest sells for $8,000 to $15,000 an acre, so the land alone is $4 to $8 million. Add $2 million in equipment and $500,000 in working capital, and you need a balance sheet north of $7 million before you plant anything. No bank hands $7 million to a beginner with no collateral. So commercial farming has turned into something close to an inherited aristocracy. You inherit paid-off ground, you marry into it, or you rent acres from a landowner who is getting ready to retire. The average age of an American producer is now past 58 because the people who want in cannot buy their way through the front door. And when an older farmer with no successor retires or gets into financial trouble, which is happening more often after a 46% jump in Chapter 12 farm bankruptcies, that ground almost never goes to a young family down the road. It goes to real estate investment trusts, Wall Street asset managers, and corporate operations farming tens of thousands of acres. The land disappears into a portfolio, cash rent goes up again, and the town loses one more family that used to spend money at the diner, the hardware store, and the school. So, is it worth it? Ask someone who has been in the dirt for 30 years, and they will not answer with margins or return on investment. They will tell you about walking a field of green that started as seed they put in dark soil in April, about pulling a live calf into the world at midnight in the cold, about answering to nobody but the weather. It is not an investment. It is a way of living where you bet everything you own every single year against nature, against a commodity market you have no say in, and against companies far bigger than you are. Next time you pour a glass of milk, the family behind it got up at 4 in the morning, carried millions in debt, took all the risk, and kept about 5 cents on the dollar.